A well-known psychologist in the Netherlands whose work has been published widely in professional journals, falsified data, and made up entire experiments, an investigating committee has found. Experts say the case exposes deep flaws in the way science is done in a field, psychology, that has only recently earned a fragile respectability. The psychologist Diederik Stapel of Tilburg University committed academic fraud in several dozen published papers, many accepted in respected journals and reported in the news media according to a report released on Monday by the three Dutch institutions where he has worked: the University of Groningen, the University of Amsterdam and Tilburg. The journal Science, which published one of Dr. Stapel's papers in April, posed an editorial expression of concern about the research online on Tuesday. The scandal, involving about a decade of work, is the latest in a string of embarrassments in a field that critics and statisticians say badly needs to overhaul how it treats research results. In recent years, psychologists have reported a raft of findings on race biases, brain imaging, and even extrasensory perception that have not stood up to scrutiny. Outright fraud may be rare, these experts say, but they contend that Dr. Staple took advantage of a system that allows researchers to operate in near secrecy and massage data to find what they want to find without much fear of being challenged. The big problem is that the culture is such that researchers spin their work in a way that tells a prettier story than what they really found, said Jonathan Schooler, a psychologist at the University of California, Santa Barbara. It's almost like everyone is on steroids, and to compete you have to make steroids as well. In a prolific career, Dr. Staple published papers on the effect of power on hypocrisy, on racial stereotyping, and on how advertisements affect how people view themselves. Many of his findings appeared in newspapers around the world, including the New York Times, which reported in December on his study about advertising and identity. In a statement posted Monday on Tilburg University's website, Dr. Staple apologized to his colleagues. "I have failed as a scientist and researcher," it read, in part. "I feel ashamed for it and have great regret." More than a dozen doctoral theses that he oversaw are also questionable. The investigators concluded, after intervening former students, co-authors, and colleagues, Dr. Staple has published about 150 papers, many of which, like the advertising study, seem devised to make a splash in the media. The study published in Science this year claimed that white people became more likely to stereotype and discriminate against black people when they were in a messy environment versus an organized one. Another study published in 2009 claimed that people judged job applicants as more competent if they had a male voice. The investigating committee did not post a list of papers that it had found fraudulent and spurious. Dr. Staple was able to operate for a number of years, in large measure because he was Lord of the data, the only person who saw the experimental evidence that had been gathered or fabricated. This is a widespread problem in psychology, and Jelty M. Wickerts, a psychologist at the University of Amsterdam, in a recent survey said 2/3 of Dutch research psychologists, and they did not make their raw data available for other researchers to see, were in violation of ethical rules established in the field. In a survey of more than 2,000 American psychologists scheduled to be published this year, Leslie John of Harvard Business School said 2 colleagues acknowledged anonymously in cutting some corners in reporting data.